Hello again, everyone. Terry Earthwind at Consortium, and we're here talking about the Great Reset. And this is part four in our series. We've had some great conversations already this year, and we're about to have another great conversation today with my good friend and colleague, Henry Wang. Henry, thank you for joining us for this discussion.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
And so am I, my friend. So am I. So, ladies and gentlemen, this episode is about what does good leadership mean to you. So, Henry, I'll throw that one at you, and let's roll with it and see how we do.
Okay.
So,
Well, good leadership for me really comes down to a leader possessing a few key qualities. I think very important is the I've worked with a lot of great leaders in in my working life, both in corporate and on supporting international organizations like the G20, B20. And I found in all those, great leaders normally possess a few common qualities. If I could name a few, it would include that the leader should be somebody who has a very good clear vision about what he wants to do, but he should have the ability to share this vision with others he work with and to motivate them and to lead them by example. That to me is really the essence of great leaders. And also now in this world of in this time of great uncertainty, I think it is very important that the leader should be someone who respects inclusivity and diversity and equality, and also be a moral example to others, because we see many leaders nowadays, concentrating too much on individualism and achieving their goals at all costs. And in the end, these have been proved to be failed leaders. They may achieve what they want to do, but they are not respected eventually by the people, and their legacies will not be go down well in history. So hope
exactly.
that helps.
Yes, yes, good points, and I mirror those immediately because we as leaders in our companies and in the world, whether it's an organization or whatever it is, we have an obligation to those that we serve. And, every day, everywhere in the world, all across all forms of media, we're talking about empathetic leaders who have good visions because everyone is looking for where we're going so that we can get out of this turmoil that's globally encased us in a lot of angst. And it's very important that we, as leaders, show them by example what it is that we have in our vision and where we're going so that they can follow, right?
Exactly.
Good leaders are in front saying, let's go. And other leaders, I won't say bad ones, I'll say other leaders sit in the back at the office and say, go get them. No, that's not really the way it's done. So I have another question for you. What
Yeah,
examples of good and bad leadership have you seen in the last few years, maybe even through COVID, because there's a lot of change going through?
absolutely. I'm fortunate that during my long corporate life in working with different boards, I've seen some great examples of leadership. But unfortunately, I've also experienced some very, very bad leadership. So happy to share this with you. A very good example is when I was asked by a major international company to be chief negotiator for their largest project in China. At that time, we I was they asked the leader asked me to be the chief negotiator for this multi-billion project. And he was really a great leader. He had trust in me. I've never done this before, but he was able to motivate me and provide me and support me with the environment and the team so that I could succeed in this very, very challenging task. Because at that time, not many people know about how to negotiate in China. And we had to all learn from scratch. And very importantly, he worked with us together and gave a lot of room, but also provided us with a lot of support and the environment where we can do the work. And also, I mean, in example, bad leaders, I've also worked with some leaders who are really not inclusive and don't believe in equality. I remember having a board meeting with one senior leader who, on a very sensitive issue, and in the end, he said, "This is the way we're going to do it. If you don't do it like what I say, I'll kill you all." I thought he was joking, to be quite honest, but in the end, and when I talked to others who know him well, they said, no, he meant every word he was saying. And this is really a really bullying sort of type management leadership, which have no place in modern corporate life anymore.
Absolutely. There's certain characteristics of East versus West leadership. Perhaps you can kind of expand on what you've seen in the characteristics of good leaders in the East and both in the West, because you are in both places as I am quite a bit. So please expand on that.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. This is a very important question. It's also an area that's really interests me. Over my working life, when I've worked in both the East and West with some top management and advised some leading companies, and also I'm working with also leading universities in the top 10 universities in the world and some leading business schools where a lot of work is done in this area. And a lot of research, management research, have said the key difference in the management style between the West and the East is the West is more towards individualism in terms of management, whereas the East is more towards collectivism. I think that's partly true, but in my experience, I also find that the East management in the East and the West are very heavily influenced by their history and culture. And in the East, in my search and study of Eastern philosophy and classics, I found, Confucianism has a lot of influence on the Chinese and the Eastern management style, with his emphasis on the way of the middle, the 中庸之道, like what he say, which literally translate as the way of the middle way, where he would always advise his disciples and others, Confucius, to try to find a compromise, to find a win-win solution. And it is very interesting, especially when I wrote my book on negotiation, that when I studied the negotiation tactics and latest negotiation tactics by leading universities in the East and the West, particularly like the Golden Bridge that is, proposed by the Harvard negotiation program, which is one of the top negotiation program in the world, for that this is being used, globally to find compact solutions for in the international problems and top corporate issues. So, I found that really with the developments and with globalization, it seems that management from the East and West are all taking the best from each other. And they all coming to the view that, the best way of management is to find a win-win solution for rather than the win-lose solution where one side win and the other side loses.
Absolutely, absolutely. You hit on some terrific points that you and I have discussed in collaborative thinking. Bank A on one corner of the street and Bank B across the street are no longer in competition. They're in collaboration and service to their community. And Confucius and Buddha and the teacher Jesus and Muhammad, they all came from what's right, what's coming from the center. It's coming from peace. There is non-duality. My wife, Linda Vetris Nichols, just put out a book about non-duality, which is, and my new book, Consortium, Business Model for the 21st Century. And you're writing a great book right now. I'd like you to plug it when we get a minute. And the greater leaders that I have seen globally are ones who enter into dialogue with those that they're engaged with, as opposed to listen to respond more than listen to understand. And there's some great ones out there. Do you have any that come to mind?
Yeah, I think this is a very important area that and congratulations on the new book you've written, Harry, and on the new book of your wife. I've honored to write a review for your new book on Consortium, and I think that's really great that you touch on something which is very important, new management thinking for international companies. And I think this is an important area that they should follow. My area now I'm working a lot on is really on the leadership that people should be working on solving great international problems like the climate change problem, which is one of the most serious challenges that is facing us all.
Absolutely, absolutely, and both of us are keen supporters of anything on climate change, and members of boards, etc. Your G20, B20 summits. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit. Yeah. And what they're going to discuss this year is a little bit different than history. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, thank you. I'm lucky to be invited by the G20 and presidency to join the International Advisory Task Force. So I've been lucky to first be invited by the G20 presidency of Saudi Arabia to advise them in 2020 in the G20 summit of 2020, which had the G20 summit in Rome last year. And this year, the G20 presidency is held by Indonesia. So I'm lucky to be invited by them to join one task force and one action council. What the task force is on the future of work and education task force. And then the Action Council is on the Women in Business Action Council. And we're both working hard on both the team and the Action Council to prepare the policy recommendation for the G20 Leaders Summit, which will be held in Bali at the end of the year.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Both of us have had great conversations about that. And you're also involved in youth and youth leadership. And what do you see in East West Wise with bringing forward the youth leadership, and where do you think that's going?
Well, I think youth is a great, very important area, and it's a passion of mine. I'm glad to be working a lot with different. I do a lot of charity work with different youth organizations and with Rotary and other NGOs around the world in this area. And I see a lot of energy and drive from youth, and I feel very passionate to support them and to share my experience with them. A great example I can share with you is just an international uh, youth climate leaders summit that we've just organized together between Philippines and Hong Kong. We had about 300 different youth leaders joining. They had really great uh, uh, energy and curiosity about climate change. We had also a lot of climate leaders, including myself, speaking and sharing our experiences. And that was really good interactive exchange. And then we followed this up with arranging, asking the youth, arranging the youth into teams, and then they developing uh, environmental project proposals for us to judge with a panel of international judges. And I must say, some of these youths come up with great uh, proposal, and they also demonstrated great leadership in terms of approaching different stakeholders great along the whole value chain because they develop this these proposals. One proposal I can which is very topical that I can share with you is really one team of youth from the Philippines actually developed this have this idea that they want to solve the world plastic problem but also the COVID problem as well. And how do they do that? And they actually did a lot of research. They talked to a lot of experts in this area, and which happened to include a great friend of mine called Father Ben in Philippines, who has a, a, a great idea of planting millions of bamboo in to provide a carbon sink, but also to provide a source of raw material for bioplastics. So these youth were able to use bamboo with leading universities to produce bioplastic, which they then applied to make face masks for the frontline COVID workers in the Philippines to do to use in their fight against COVID. So they were able to solve several problems. They were able to find a way to solve the plastic problem by using by replacing chemical plastic, which are non-recyclable, with bioplastic, which is recyclable and made from a natural source. So they stopped using any fossil fuel and they made it from bamboo and reduced fossil fuel requirement. And they were able then to provide bioplastic, use bioplastic to make the face mask for the frontline COVID workers in the Philippines, which helps to solve the COVID pandemic. And that's a great idea of win-win. And this is all done by a group of youth in there who are 17 and 16s and 17s, and this is by talking to great leaders and people around the world. So I think they have a lot of tremendous leadership potential, and our job is really help and mentor this and coach these youth so that they can become great leaders of future, which they
Absolutely, absolutely.
demonstrated tremendous potential for.
That is so outstanding, you know, and the further production of hemp and its multitude of uses and how fast it regrows. You know, you can harvest a field, 3 months later, you're ready to harvest again. It's amazing how it grows. And bamboo does the same thing, just up it goes, and that's wonderful. You know, another thing that comes to mind is women and women in leadership roles, and the proverbial glass ceiling and those kinds of things. What do you see in East West with women development in leadership roles? I know I've been working with quite a few, and most of my clients, actually, 97% are women. Uh, so I'd like to get your take on women in development too, in leadership.
No, I think I agree with you, Terry. It's a very important problem, and I think it is a problem. So I'm very glad that this problem is now got the attention of the G20 leaders. And I was very honored last year to be invited by the G20 presidency of Italy to join the Women in Business task force to advise the G20 leaders. And we really uh, develop proposals where we advise them to provide support women education and empowerment, and this was taken up by the G20 leaders. And I'm also very glad that this is also taken up also by the G20 presidency of Indonesia, and they've actually gone one step forward to set up this Women in Business Action Council, which they invited me to join together with other leading male and female participants around the world. And we are now working very hard to provide the policy recommendation for the G20 leaders later on in their summit at Bali at the end of the year. And one area that we've agreed to work together on is to develop a new international women platform, which should be launched by the G20 leaders if they all agree by, and in all the G20 countries. And we are now working very hard with all the leading NGOs and international organizations and on doing this. I think this will be great because the world is now, so, the globalized world's globalization and interaction now with digitization and things like that. We can talk with people around the world like you and me. We are able to talk today with you in America and I in Hong Kong. We are able to talk together via this digital platform. So we thought through the One Women digital platform, women and men, across the world can talk together, exchange view on a trust, a platform where they can trust and with people that they can respect and exchange view in a inclusive and on an equal basis. I think that will be a great area to promote East and West leaders to have dialogue. And who knows, once you have good dialogue and you can trust each other, in my experience, there's great cooperation and great ideas will come out of that. And that will be good for the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those discussions are just like we are doing right now. You're in Hong Kong, I'm in the eastern seaboard of the United States, and we're talking loud, live and future conversations. It's going to be, my front yard is your front yard. I mean, we're all in one inclusive world. So we start thinking and setting up, education and those types of things. As a matter of fact, that's my next question for you: is education in leadership and how it's developed. I am mentoring a great young man who is developing a STEM concept in American high schools. so that more people, more students can be put into an organized curriculum as opposed to the current curriculums of high schools, so that we get more scientists and engineers out there, both male and female. Okay. That's a delight. And I'd like you to speak on that because you have spoken on that in the past.
Yeah. No, this is a very important area, and I'm very glad that the G20 presidency of Indonesia invited me to work with the Future of Work and Education Task Force to provide policy recommendation for G20 leaders. I'm also advising some of the top 10 universities in the world. And this is really a great area because it can allow me to work with some of the top brains in the world to work on education and youth development, which is really a passion of mine. And I think you brought up two very important areas. And I think STEM education is very, very important. I think this is going to be an important area. And this is also an area which we are developing policy recommendations for G20 leaders so that they can improve STEM education across the world. The other area that is very important is really in climate education. And, I think to solve the climate crisis, which is one of the top challenge to the world, across the world at this moment in time, it's great to see in COP26 in Glasgow in November last year that 200 countries in the world, all signed the new Glasgow Climate Pact, that they need to work together to find the solutions for the world. And they all committed to develop new NDCs and climate action plans and net zero plans. And now to be successful in doing this and to be able to present the new NDC to COP26 in Egypt at the end of the year, I think a huge amount of work needs to be done in terms of education and sharing the best practice between the different countries in the world. And I think that's where education and promoting East-West dialogue really comes in, because I think, that the more people talk about, the more education plays a role, I think the greater the sharing of understanding there will be between East and West, and in finding win-win solutions for huge challenges that are facing the world today, like the climate challenge.
Right. There's no planet B. I just posted that the other day for World Environment Day. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world right now that's habitable. Our grandchildren, not so much. Things change now. It's no longer of, well, I hope people take action on it. No, ladies and gentlemen, you get to individually check, because this world will change starting with ourselves. Okay. What you have in you, you give to other people and expand that excitement and grow leaders that are going to make decisions based on how is it going to help people, and is it going to help our climate, and going to help our earth. These are responsible decisions rather than how much money can we make off this deal. That's no longer the driver. Collaboration is the key. That is a word that's a buzzword that's moving forward. Any final comments, Henry? This has just been terrific.
No, the same for me, Terry. I really enjoyed our conversation together over the years. I think you've done a lot of work, and you and Simon have both done a work in leadership, and I'm very, very proud to be able to and very happy to work with you on this leadership, and also with Simon on the East-West Leaders Dialogue, which helps to promote greater dialogue and cooperation between leaders in the East and West, because I think that's important, particularly in this time of uncertainty that's facing us all in the world at this moment in time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is part 4 of the 5-part series that Simon Haig and I will do a wrap-up show next month, the first week or so of July. Henry, great to see you. Lovely discussion. I knew it was going to be great. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you very much for asking me, and I've really enjoyed it and looking forward to the end of your show.
Thank you. And thank you for watching today, both live and those of you who will listen to the recording. Bye for now.